Hello, and welcome to my tiny tarot practice. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and this podcast shares my tiny tarot practice where I'm exploring the tarot card by card, beginning with the suits of the minor arcana. Today's card is the Page of Pentacles. When I read from my favorite tarot texts about this card, I have to admit that a lot of the interpretations didn't really resonate with me. Rachel Pollack in 78 Degrees of Wisdom emphasizes the page as a student, as a learner, and Jessica Crispin in the Creative Tarot emphasizes this card as signaling an idea that's emerging that will change things, something you'll have to work with and on and bring into the material world from the ether. And both of those felt very in the head, in the air to me for the Pentacles, for a card that begins the court cards of the Pentacles. And then I turned to Tarot for Change from Jessica Dorr, and a sentence that she wrote there really unlocked this card for me. So I wanted to read it to you or share it with you. In Tarot for Change, she writes, "The Page of Pentacles represents the emerging capability to use behavior in a way that is devotional." I'm going to read that again because it just blew my mind. The Page of Pentacles represents the emerging capability to use behavior in a way that is devotional. I love this as a description of the Page of Pentacles because I think when I think of the pages, I think of them as a threshold card where we've gone, the way I've talked about the journey through the minor arcana here, thinking of the ace as a card that is both the beginning and the entirety of a suit. The 2 is the first step of the journey that goes until the 10, which is in some sense a culmination of the minor arcana journey of the suit. And then with the page, I think we step it through a threshold into the court cards, which to me feel less like perhaps like these stories or ways that we encounter the suits or the tarot archetypes in our lives, and more about ways of being in a relationship to the element of that suit. And I think the pages are these thresholds of the emerging of what's to come in the action of the night, the being of, or the capability of the queen, and the, I want to say like, existence of the king, the activeness of the king, the potentiated realization of the king. My language is failing me here, and maybe I'll work through it as we move through the court cards in these 4 suits. But when Jessica Dorr wrote that the page is this process of the emerging capability to use behavior in a way that is devotional, it really kind of brought together the other interpretations of these cards for me, the student, the idea that will change things. Because I think in our journey as learners, we move ideally from learning, where it's a really like mental process, to practicing, where we are bringing that thought into action, to integrating, where it can become a part of ourselves, where it really, in my mind, moves from like, this is something I intellectually understand to this is something I can live out in my body and my actions, and from there to being. Some things we learn become so close and personal and deeply intertwined with who we are that they simply are who we are from then on. This, I think, is the journey of how we live into our values. We learn about them intellectually, we select them, we practice them, we integrate them, and then they just are who we are. And I think the Page of Pentacles, when I think about it in that way, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's stepping into that journey, not from a place of, I have no idea what's coming, or I'm starting from scratch, but from a place of, perhaps if we're thinking about the values example, a place of like, I know what I want my values to be. Here's this moment where I'm stepping into fully learning them so that I can practice, integrate, and be them. And I think then for me, those can become those 4 stages. I was just trying to puzzle through, the page as learning, the knight as practicing, the queen as integrating, and the king as being. What a beautiful evolution through the court cards. And With the pentacles specifically, then we see our material lives, we see our behaviors, we see our embodiment, the ways that we're going to live this out as an embodied process, the ways I often will think of my own values, that they may start as an intellectual learning, but if they're really going to be who I am, they have to integrate deeper into my spirit, into my body, into my actions. And so I think this is a beautiful opportunity. The Page of Pentacles is a beautiful opportunity to think about how we are able to enact our values, to be in a way that is devotional, as Jessica Dore put it. And what I love about this threshold card of the pages is it's also, as a threshold, it's the end of the journey and the beginning of the journey. So we saw with the 10 of Pentacles, that sort of insistence on wealth existing in community that I talked about in that episode. And I think here we can see the ways in which we began a process again of with the 10, we've fully integrated into community. And now we're individuating to fully integrate again on a deeper level. So these are some things I'm thinking about with the Page of Pentacles. I think that these values, this embodiment can happen in, any of the pentacle-esque areas of our lives, whether that be our relationship to the earth, our relationship to money, our bodies, our actions. The pentacles, bring in all of those material things. And I think are also the suit where we remember that everything else can be grounded. But then also, once again, the air can be grounded, but also ground needs the flow of water and the spark of fire. And so everything's intertwined. But with the pentacles, I think we're invited into relationship with the earth and ourselves as earth. And the Page of Pentacles is that moment where we see how we can go from, experiencing the earth in our bodies to really devoting ourselves to it and the practice and integration and being of that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Tiny Tarot Practice. As always, I curate a bookshop list of all of the books that I mentioned in this episode, my very favorite tarot texts, as well as decks and journals and puzzles and all sorts of things there. So you can find that link in the show notes and check it out. If you do make a purchase through it, I will receive a small affiliate payment that helps me keep this podcast going. Thanks for being here. I hope that you enjoyed this exploration of the Page of Pentacles, and I send you off into that sweet, sweet practice of devotion.